Hi, I'm Dave Vickers and welcome to the Photo Show. We're going to do another Photoshop tutorial today, and today I'm going to take a look at using the brush tool within Photoshop. Everyone's probably very familiar with the brush tool. If you look on your toolbar at the side here, it's a little paintbrush icon just below the healing tool, and if you click on that, or you can use the keyboard shortcut of just pressing B, that will bring up your brush tool. As you can see, we've got a circular icon on the screen now. If we want to increase our brush size, we can use the right hand square bracket key. That'll increase it like that. And if you want to decrease it, use the left hand square bracket key, and that will decrease it back like that. These are very simple operations. Let me just put a blank layer in over the top of this now. So we've got our color swatches here set to the default black and white, and the brush tool will always operate on what is the top color here. So at the moment our brush will paint in black, and as you can see here, it's quite a soft edge brush with quite a fuzzy edge. If you come up here to the little drop down menu, this is telling you the size of the brush. It's a 175, and it's showing there that it's a soft edge brush. Within here you can change the size of the brush, use the scroller there to make a bigger size brush. You can also then adjust the hardness of the brush, bring it all the way up to 100, and we're going to get a very hard edged round brush, which is going to give us a straight circle. That's all fine, that's great. I mean, the brush tool is brilliant for using on things like layer masks and stuff like that, but there are a whole load of options that you can use within Photoshop with the brush tool. If we do that drop down menu again, as we start to scroll down here, you can see there's a bunch of different options for the types of brush. There's specialist brushes and pencils and a huge variety. As we come down, we start to get into a few more interesting ideas. Like, let's choose this one here. This brush will give a speckled effect. Let's make that a little bit bigger so we can see it. And you can see there the brush is quite a weird pattern, but it will give you quite a dispersed speckled effect. And you've got a bunch of different options here. You've got ones that are like grass leaves. So you can make little grass patterns. And come down a little bit further, and you've got things like leaves as well, and you can put those in, and you can see they're coming up in sort of random patterns and sizes, and if you drag that across you can get a bunch of leaves. Now these are all very interesting, but how many times you're actually going to use these is entirely up to you. It depends what you're doing, really. But one of the things you can do is to make your own brushes. This can be really useful for a variety of reasons. So let me get rid of this layer here. Let's drag that into the recycle bin there, and we'll put a new blank layer over the top so we can work on. We'll take our brush tool back to the top, and we'll go back to an ordinary size brush. Now let's start off with something really simple. Let's make a really basic brush and show you how you make it and save it. Now, for brushes to be saved within Photoshop, they need to be black on a white background, so that Photoshop can differentiate what part is the brush and what part is not to be used. So let's pick a nice hard brush there, and I'm going to make that a bigger size as well. So let's get a nice large size brush up there. Let's go right the way up, even bigger. Give that one go. Actually, I'm going to Control Z, and I'm going to make that even bigger now. Okay, so we've got a large circle on the screen. Let's just one click, and now we've made ourselves a nice black circle. And if I now reduce the size of the brush to around there, and we'll switch the color swatch on the side from white to be the foreground color. So press X on your keyboard, and that'll switch the swatches around. And we'll do one click there, and there we've made ourselves a nice circle. What we can do now is we can actually save that circle as a user brush, as a custom brush. So if we come up to the top here where it says edit, on your drop down list, on this section here it says define brush preset. If we click that, a little dialog box will open, and it will say sample brush 1. So let's rename that as circle. Let's do circle 1. Click OK, And now look what's happened to our brush icon. It's now changed to that circle. So if I click again, we've now got that in white. Let's put the swatches back and reduce the size a little bit. Let's reduce the size down, do one in the center there. And this will work like any other brush. And the thing you can do as well, let's go to the color swatch there, double click on there. You can choose whatever color you want now. The brush we've just made will react like any other brush within Photoshop. Let's pick a nice blue color, click OK. There, now we've got it in blue. Let's go for a red. Make it a little bit smaller. And there we go. The brush we've just made, which we've created, we can use like any other brush. There are a bunch of other different options here. Let's put another blank layer over the top and turn that one off for a second. With your brush open, you can see next to it we've got this little icon, which is the brush panel, which looks like a bunch of brushes in a pot. If we click that, we now have a bunch of different options that we can use. If we click Shape Dynamics, we can now change what's called the jitter angle, which will show how you can see in the preview at the bottom how random the angle of the brush will be. We've got roundness jitter, that will keep it as complete round brushes. If we start to do it, it will rotate some of them a little bit. So now if we use the brush again and just click and drag, you can see it's randomizing the size of the brush, randomizing the angle that the brush is coming in at. And you can swap the colors on this. Let's go for a yellow this time. Make the brush a little bit larger. So there we go. We made a brush within a couple of seconds that we can use in various sizes. We can change the properties of it and make the brush do whatever we need to do, just like any other brush within Photoshop. Okay, that was a fairly simple one. Let's try something a little bit more complicated now. Let's put another layer over the top. Let's try something with a logo. So let's open up something over the top here. Somewhere in here, I have the Photoshop logo. So let's open that up. There we go. Right, so there's the logo for the Photoshop. Now, we can turn this into a brush. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the levels on it to try and make it a little bit darker so it stands out a little bit more. Okay. Now, if we come to Edit, Define Brush Preset, you can see there it's already showing up as the Photoshop logo. We'll take out the rest of the .png at the end, click OK, and now look, we've got a brush that we can use as the Photoshop logo. Let's go back onto our original blank here, and each time I click, I can have it in whatever color I like. Let's go back to a black color, and I can make it smaller. We could do the properties again. Let's do the drop down of the properties, do the shape dynamics on it, and we've got all of that kind of size. Let's do the angle jitter. Let's bring that back a little bit there. We've got some other options here, scattering. That will show how much the items are scattered around. So if we then do that, and we've made a brush just from a logo. So that's two ways of making your own custom brushes, and these are now, if you now go to your drop down menu and come to the bottom, you can now see at the bottom here we have the Photoshop logo brush that we made and the circle brush that we made previous to that. So these are now stored to be used anytime within your brushes palette. So let's shut this one off and let's try something else. we can actually make a logo from a photograph. So let's open up a photograph. Let's say if you're looking for a brush to make smoke. Now what I did is I basically went onto Google and I typed in smoke images, and a bunch came up, and let's pick one now. Let's try this one. I'm going to put the brush back to a normal size because that's just getting annoying. Okay, so we've got an image here of just some smoke. Now, as you can see, the smoke's quite white on a black background, and obviously we want it to be the other way. There's also a bit of colour in here. You can see there's a bit of a blue tint to the smoke. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to desaturate this. So Shift Control U, and there we've turned that into just a black and white. We've taken any colour out of it at all. What I want to do now is actually want to invert this. So Shift Control I. Sorry, Control and I, and there we go. We've inverted the image, so we've now got the black smoke against a white background. So we can adjust the levels a little bit. Let's bring the whites up a little bit more, and we'll bring the blacks down a touch there as well, just so it stands out nicely from the background. Okay, and now if we go Edit, Define Brush Preset, you can see now that we've got the smoke that we had from the image. Click OK, call it Smoke 1, click OK. Let's open up a new document and bring it up full size. Choose our brush tool, and if we come to the drop down menu here, come right the way to the bottom. There we go, we've got the circle one we made the first time, the Photoshop logo, and here is the smoke one that we've just created. And if we click that, you can see now we've got an image of the smoke. Let's make that a little bit bigger. You can see the sort of from the brush preset, it's quite a random looking thing, but it doesn't have to be. The options we've got now, we can have the smoke in any colour we like. Let's go for more of a blue here. Let's go for a sort of a mid blue. And you've now got a brush that you can paint smoke and use however you like. And that's, we've now made a brush from an image. We've made a brush from a logo. We've made a brush just for some simple shapes, and we've made a brush from an existing image. Right, we're going to try one other thing now. We're going to try and actually make quite a complicated brush straight off. So let's get rid of some of these, and I'm going to put that. We've got our layer there, so let's get a new blank layer over the top. What I'm going to do is try and make a brush that will allow you to put light rays, as if you've got sunbeams streaming from either through a forest or through a window. We'll try and make a brush that we can use on images for things like that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my default colours on the swatches here back to black and white. So I'm going to press D on the keyboard, and you can see now that the foreground colour is black and the background colour is white. I need the brush tool, so click there, or the B on your keyboard, and I'm going to choose just a basic soft edge brush. I want the brush to be a little bit smaller than that. I'm actually also going to rotate the canvas here, because I think this will probably work better on an upright canvas. Right, okay, so we've got an upright canvas, we've got a soft edge black brush, and all I'm going to do is just put some random dots around on this. Let's make some different size ones as well. Okay, so at the moment all we have is some random dots on a white page. Actually looks like an eye test. It's making my eyes go quite funny. The thing we need to do now is to make this look more like light beams, like streaks coming through. When you get them, coming through the trees or coming through smoke, that's what we're looking to create, like rays of light. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to use a filter. we use filter, going down to blur, and what we can use is radial blur. Now radial blur is usually set when it default opens to spin, and you can use it for making wheels and stuff like that. What we're going to do is we're going to switch that to zoom, and you can see here from the preview, you don't actually get a live preview on the image, you just get the preview on the box here. But you can see here that if we extend the amount, it's actually showing that it's zooming the image away from the center point. The first thing I'm going to do, because these are light beams and we want them to be coming down, is I'm going to move the center point. So I'm going to click and drag this up to about there. And we're going to increase the amount here up to 100%. And you can see now from the preview what the effect is we're trying to go for. It's actually the radial blur is pulling it down. So let's click OK. Take a little while to work. Right, okay, and there you can see it's beginning to work. It's not quite as strong an effect as we need, so let's apply that filter again. And you see at the top there, the last filter you use is always available at the top there, or you can press Ctrl and F. So let's click the radial blur again. There we go. Let's do it 2 more times. Filter, and we'll do 1 more. Okay, so that should be giving us the kind of look we need. What I'm going to do is, because of these square edges, if we keep these like this, the brush will always have a square edge to it. So if I pick my brush tool, which we have here, and I'm going to switch this, I'm going to change the swatches around by pressing X to get white on the foreground. I'm just going to paint, if we take that off, I'm just going to paint roughly around the edge here to get rid of the rough edge, sorry, the sharp edge of the frame, just so we're just separating out the actual area that we need. So let's paint around the top there. Now this is all looking very strange at the moment, but you remember when I said earlier on that for a brush set to work, it needs to be black on a white background. That's what Photoshop's going to pick out, is the darker part of the image rather than the lighter part of the image. So the white we've just done around the edge is just really just going to give us an edge blend to what we actually need. I'm now going to do just a levels adjustment on that. So Control and L. I'm going to darken down the beams a little bit there. We can see that the whites are already very white. So we click OK. And now once again we come to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and there we can see we've got that. So let's call that Light Rays. Call that Light Rays 1. Click OK. And now you can see we've got a very odd brush set. Let's put another layer over the top. What I'm actually going to do, I'm actually going to fill this layer. So I'm going to come to Edit, Fill, and let's fill it with black so we can see what we're doing. So we filled that layer with black. Now with our foreground colour set to white over on the swatches here, if I now click, you can now see that we've got something that looks like light beams shining down. Obviously on here, on a blank background, it's not that massively effective. But if we open up another image, let's open up an image here. I've got one here of light coming through a church window, so let's open this up. So there we go, we've got light coming through the church window. It's a nice image, but if we now use the brush we've just made, you can see with it's a weird looking shaped brush. If we now, let's put a blank layer over the top so we're not affecting that, we can see the before and after. And we'll put the top of it at where the light's coming through on the window and just click. And now you can see, you can do that. Let's do that another time. It now looks like we've got the rays of light shining through the window, and you can adjust that with the opacity slider there just to get the effect slightly more. So there's the before, and there's where we've used the light beam brush. And obviously you could use this on a bunch of different images. If you've got light shining through the trees in the forest, anything where you've got a bright light source, you could add these light beams in to give a bit of definition and a bit of feel to your image. So there we go. I've shown you how you can create your own brushes within Photoshop, how you can save them. If we come to the top here and do the drop down menu, you can now see within the drop down menu we've got our light beams light rays brush that we've made and just used there. We have the smoke brush that we made from the image of the smoke. We've got the Photoshop Photoshop logo and the circle image there. And if making your own brushes is tricky, if you just type into Google free Photoshop brushes, there are a ton of ones that you can download and add into them as well. But that's showing you how you can make your own custom brushes within Photoshop very easily, very quickly, and you can keep and delete them as much as you like. I don't think there's a limit to how many brushes you can have. So hopefully that's been helpful. I'm Dave Vickers. Until next time, see you then.